The laughter on set died as quickly as it had erupted. Bruce sat in the guest chair, his hands folded, that signature half-smile still lingering despite the sting in the air. The young host, early 30s, buzzed hair, sneakers too clean, had just leaned into the mic with a smirk and asked, "Do you even remember what movie you're promoting, Bruce? Or is that asking too much these days?" A few chuckles from the audience, nervous ones. Bruce blinked, slowly, not confused, calm. He turned slightly in his chair, looking at the host like a father might look at a son who just said something cruel to feel powerful. Then he glanced down, took a breath and exhaled. The silence stretched. You could hear a camera adjust focus. You could hear someone in the control room whispering "cut" into their headset. But Bruce didn't storm off, he didn't raise his voice. What he did, no one in that studio or watching at home would forget. He leaned forward. His voice was steady, low, unmistakably his. "You know," he said, "I used to memorize 80 pages of dialogue a week. I was doing 3 movies at a time, traveling, raising a family, working with people I admired. I had everything. And somewhere along the way, my brain started betraying me." The host's grin vanished. Bruce kept going. "I've got aphasia. It's a neurological condition. It messes with your language, your memory. It's frustrating, humbling. Some days I can't finish a sentence the way I want. Some days I get scared. Not just for me, but for my kids, my wife, because I don't know how fast this will go. But I know it's going." He paused. The room didn't breathe. "And then I come here," he said, gesturing to the set. "And a kid with perfect recall and a talk show job thinks it's funny to call me senile." The host tried to speak, but Bruce raised a hand gently. "It's okay," he said. "I get it, I really do. You're not a bad guy. You just don't know what it's like yet. One day maybe you'll be sitting where I am, and you'll wish people asked better questions." Then Bruce stood. "I may not remember every line I ever said," he added, eyes sweeping the audience, "but I remember how it feels to matter, and how it feels when someone tries to take that from you." The audience stood with him. It wasn't clapping, not yet. Just silence, respect. A producer off camera signaled for commercial, her hand shaking. Bruce nodded to the crew, gave the host a light touch on the shoulder, and walked off stage without another word. The clip hit the internet before the show finished airing. And by midnight, the world was watching. People weren't talking about an aging actor losing his mind. They were talking about dignity, about courage, about a man who refused to disappear quietly. And they were talking about how, even with failing words, Bruce Willis had said more in 5 minutes than most could in a lifetime. If that moment moved you too, leave a comment with your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe. There's more to this story, and trust me, you'll want to hear the rest. Bruce sat on the back porch of his Idaho home, the one tucked beneath the pines where the air smelled clean and the quiet wrapped around you like an old blanket. Emma was inside with the girls, making pancakes even though it was nearly noon. No one kept regular hours here anymore. They didn't have to. His phone buzzed again. He ignored it. The night after the interview aired, his publicist had called 3 times before sunrise. So had his agent, and 2 former directors. One of them, a guy he hadn't heard from in a decade, left a voicemail in tears. He didn't know how to feel. He wasn't angry, but he wasn't proud either. That wasn't how he'd planned to spend the evening. He'd shown up to do the usual press run for a small indie film. His last, maybe. The one where he didn't have to speak much. Just be present. Listen. React. The director had written the role with him in mind. A father quietly fading, trying to hold his family together with looks and gestures instead of long speeches. It was art imitating life, and Bruce had been okay with that, until the host made it personal. Emma stepped out with 2 mugs of coffee. "Phone still ringing?" Bruce nodded, accepting a mug. "It's like they forgot who I was until last night." Emma sat beside him. They didn't forget. They just stopped paying attention. He sipped the coffee. Black, hot, familiar. "I wasn't trying to make a scene," he said quietly. "I know," she replied. "You were just telling the truth." There was a kind of silence between 2 people who've lived through things together, not the uncomfortable kind, but the kind that holds weight. She reached over, placed a hand over his. "People are listening now," she said. Bruce nodded. That scared him a little. The moment had gone viral, sure, but what would they want from him now? More speeches? More honesty? He wasn't sure he had much left in that department. Later that day, a delivery truck arrived with a stack of handwritten letters. Not emails, letters. Dozens of them. From veterans, retired teachers, young men who'd lost their fathers to dementia, single moms with aging parents. People who weren't looking for entertainment, they were looking for understanding. One note stuck with him. A teenage boy from Ohio had written, "My grandpa has aphasia. He used to be a professor. He stopped talking much after his diagnosis. But after he saw your video, he called me into the living room and just said, 'That's how I feel.' First time he'd spoken in days, thank you." Bruce folded that letter slowly, then placed it in the small wooden box he kept by his bed. It was the same box where he stored photos from his childhood, a coin from his first Die Hard, a note from Demi when Rumor was born. He didn't keep many things these days, not unless they meant something. That night, Emma found him in the study, staring at his reflection in the dark window. "I don't want to be remembered for one viral clip," he said. "You won't be," she told him. "But that moment, it reminded people you're still here, and that you still matter." Bruce didn't answer, but he didn't look away either. In the reflection, he still looked like himself, just a little slower, a little quieter, still standing. 3 days later, Bruce was sitting across from Diane Rivera, a veteran journalist who'd been trying to get him for years. They were in a quiet private studio in Santa Monica, no live audience, no applause signs. Just 2 chairs, 1 camera, and a producer who promised no interruptions. He hadn't wanted to do it, but Emma had gently nudged. "If you don't tell your story," she'd said, "someone else will." Diane didn't waste time. After a few pleasantries, she leaned forward, her voice soft. "Why now, Bruce?" He thought about that, then shrugged a little. "Because people keep talking about me instead of to me. And I figured maybe it's time I said something while I still can." She nodded. "What's the hardest part?" He looked down at his hands, then up. "Losing words," he said. "I spent my whole life making a living out of saying the right thing, at the right time, to the right people. Now I mix them up, forget names. I'll know what I want to say, but it won't come out. It's like a traffic jam in my head." Diane didn't interrupt. She just waited. "I used to be afraid of losing fame," he added. "But this is different. Fame fades. This takes pieces of you, quietly, every day." He swallowed. Diane gave him space. "But I'm still me," he said firmly. "I still feel things. I still love my kids, I still laugh with Emma. I still get up every morning and try. That's got to count for something." She leaned back, visibly moved. "Do you think people see you differently now?" Bruce let out a small breath of a laugh. "Some people pity me. Others act like I'm already gone. But the real ones, they know. They show up. They remind me I'm more than my condition." He paused. "And I'm learning to remind myself too." The interview went on for an hour, but what stayed with Diane wasn't what Bruce said. It was how he said it. No theatrics, no self-pity, just quiet strength. A man reckoning with his limits and refusing to let them define him. The footage never aired, not because of Bruce, because of him. After watching the playback, he called the producer and asked them to hold it. "It's not a message," he said, "it's just a man talking." They respected that. Word got around, though, as it always does in Hollywood. And before long, the gesture became a story in itself. People weren't just talking about the moment on live TV anymore. They were talking about what didn't happen, about how a man famous for delivering lines chose this time not to deliver anymore. And strangely, that made the message louder. One night, Emma found him sitting on the porch again, watching the sun dip behind the trees. "You sure you don't want people to see it?" she asked. He shook his head. "Not yet." She sat beside him. "I watched it," she said after a while. "You looked free." He smiled, a little crooked. "Maybe I am." They didn't speak for the rest of the sunset. Later, he walked inside, kissed his daughters goodnight, and went to bed with the weight of a man who knew time was slipping, but refused to let go of his dignity along with it. A cold envelope arrived that morning. No return address. Just a neat, slanted handwriting that read, "Bruce Willis, Personal." Emma handed it to him while clearing the kitchen table. Another letter. He'd received hundreds over the last 2 weeks. Some ended up on his nightstand, some in the wooden box, some unread. This one, though, he opened it right away. Inside was a single page, folded cleanly. The letter was from a woman named Marie, age 42, living in Montclair, New Jersey. "Dear Bruce, I watched your clip with my father. He has early onset Alzheimer's. He's 64, younger than you. For a long time, I didn't know how to talk to him. He'd change channels mid-sentence, forget who I was for a moment, then remember and pretend he hadn't. I didn't understand it. I felt angry, helpless. But when he watched your interview, something changed. He pointed at the screen and said, "That's it, that's what it feels like." We didn't speak much after that, but I sat next to him for a long time, holding his hand. For the first time in months, it felt like we weren't just stuck in silence. I just wanted to say thank you for helping me see him again. Bruce read the letter twice. Then he placed it in the wooden box. That afternoon, he sat with his youngest daughter, Evelyn, coloring at the dining table. She had a habit of talking to herself while she drew. He liked that. It filled the silence without demanding anything from him. She looked up and said, "Daddy, do you forget things because your brain is tired?" He paused, then smiled. "Yeah," he said. "That's a good way to put it." She nodded, satisfied, and went back to coloring a bright pink tree. Emma watched from the hallway. She didn't interrupt. That night, he called his oldest daughter, Ruma. She'd left LA the day before, promising to check in every few days. "Hey," she said, "you okay?" "Got a letter today," he said, "from a woman in Jersey. Her dad's going through the same thing." "Yeah?" He told her the story, briefly, simply. When he finished, Ruma was quiet. Then she said, "I think people are starting to understand, Dad. Like, really understand. Because of you." Bruce didn't reply right away. Then, "I'm scared sometimes." "I know, but I'm still me. I know that too." There was a long pause between them. Not awkward, just full. Before they hung up, she added, "I'm proud of you. Always have been." He sat for a while after the call, watching the moon rise above the trees. His world had gotten quieter lately. Slower, but somehow deeper too. Letters like Marie's didn't take away the fear, the loss, but they gave shape to something else. Connection. And for the first time in a long while, Bruce realized something. Maybe he didn't have to be the guy who remembered every line. Maybe being the guy who made people feel seen was enough. Maybe that was the best thing he'd ever done. Spring arrived late in Idaho. Snow lingered in the shadows beneath pine trees, and the morning still bit through your sleeves. But the air had changed, lighter, full of movement. Birds were back. The world was waking up. Bruce stood by the window of his study, hands resting on the frame. He wasn't reading scripts anymore. That part was done. But he still liked the way paper felt. The stack of letters on his desk had grown taller than any trophy he'd ever received. He read one or two every morning, slow and deliberate. Sometimes aloud when Emma sat nearby. Sometimes just in silence, letting the words wash over him. He didn't know most of the people writing, but in a way, he knew them. Their fears, their regrets, their quiet love for someone slipping away. It was all there, in shaky pen strokes, in coffee-stained paper, in scribbled margins where people tried to say something that mattered. That afternoon, his daughters convinced him to take a walk, just around the property. They walked slowly, one on each side of him, coats zipped to their chins. Bruce held onto their arms, not because he needed to, but because he liked the feel of them close. They reached the edge of the woods, where the land opened up to a long field. Emma was already there, waiting by the old wooden bench. She smiled when she saw him. The girls ran ahead. Bruce sat beside her, breath catching a little from the cold. "Good day?" she asked. "Better now." She placed a hand on his knee. "I think we did something important, you and me." He nodded. For a moment, they just watched the wind roll across the field, flattening the grass in waves. "You think people will forget?" he asked quietly. Emma thought about that. "Maybe some," she said, "but not the ones who matter." He looked out again. "I used to think legacy meant box office numbers, awards, headlines. But it's not that, is it?" "No," she said. "It's what you leave in people." He smiled. "Then I'm okay." That night, the family sat around the fireplace. No one said much. Evelyn was asleep in Emma's lap. Ruma was scrolling through her phone, occasionally showing something to Scout. Bruce just sat soaking it in. He didn't need to talk. He didn't need to perform. He was present, fully. Later, he walked down the hall to the study and opened the wooden box one last time. He added one more letter, a folded piece of notebook paper Evelyn had written that morning. "Dear Dad, I love you even when you forget my lunch. You're the best daddy because you never forget me. Love, Evie." Bruce placed it on top of the others, closed the box and turned off the light. In the quiet that followed, he felt full, not of memory, but of meaning. If this story touched something in you, don't leave without letting us know. Subscribe and click the video on screen. It was chosen just for you, and I promise you're going to love it.